second video about an engine swap for my 1999 Subaru Sambar Dias Classic van. The plan is to upgrade the stock engine and transaxle to a 4-cylinder, 1.9-liter Volkswagen turbo direct injection diesel engine and the accompanying 5-speed transmission. In the prior video, I explained the motivation to make this change and began evaluating and preparing the 30-year-old Volkswagen powertrain. In that video, I promised to explain what I see as the two biggest hurdles to making this work, and that information is forthcoming. But first, let me remind you that I'm not an expert, and I am unsure if this swap is even feasible at this point. I may fail, but at least the video can provide insight into some of the logistical challenges that you might face if you elected to do an engine upgrade. There are some things I'm willing to do to make this engine swap work, and there are other things that I'm just not willing to do. First, I'm not willing to modify the suspension on this vehicle. Likewise, I'm not willing to modify the placement of the box frame under the vehicle. Now, I have no problem adding airbags to the coil springs to support the additional weight of the Volkswagen powertrain, but I'm not willing to redesign suspension components or fabricate them. Now, this vehicle, this K-Truck, uses a trailing arm coil spring rear suspension. Changing the design of this would change the ride characteristics of the vehicle, and that kind of defeats my point, at least in my opinion. This is perhaps the bigger issue, though, because as you can see, there's little room for a powertrain ahead of the axle centerline in this vehicle. This is a problem. It is particularly problematic for the powertrain I've chosen. The Volkswagen system places the engine crank ahead of the drive axles from the transaxle. And as you can see, there just isn't room for anything bigger than, say, a lawnmower engine ahead of the drive axle centerline of the Subaru Sambar. So, what to do? The other potential major problem I am aware of is the length of the Volkswagen powertrain. It's only 3/4 of an inch shorter than the space available between the frame rails of this vehicle. As an amateur, anytime I measure something that is mission critical and really tight, something gets missed. There will invariably be something I did not notice or consider or think about. So I consider a real possibility that there's something I did not take into account that stops the swap when the time comes to install this powertrain. Regarding the fact that the transmission is designed with the engine in front of the drive axles, the engine will not fit in this way. So the plan here is to clock this transaxle to put the drive shafts ahead of the engine. This means running the transaxle upside down as compared to how it was designed. And doing so with this powertrain poses at least 5 issues. Number one, will the transmission survive being operated upside down? Will the gear oil circulate sufficiently? Issue number 2, the bolt pattern of the bell housing is asymmetrical. This means it won't bolt to the engine if rotated 180 degrees from the designed alignment. So that requires an adapter, and there is no adapter available for purchase for clocking this transaxle, meaning I would have to make my own, and I'm not a machinist. The third item on this list is this transmission has a breather port. It is to permit the internal air to expand and contract with the normal heat cycles of operation. Currently, this port is on top of the transaxle, and it will leak gear oil if the transmission is operated or placed upside down. The fourth item is that rotating this transmission, or clocking it, puts the gear shift linkage and the cables on the bottom of the transaxle near the road and all the hazards the road holds. The fifth issue is this chassis uses a cable to actuate the clutch. However, the Volkswagen transaxle uses a hydraulic system to activate and deactivate the clutch. So there we have it. Those are the 5 main concerns that I have for making this engine swap work. I anticipate there'll be more that crop up after the fact, but these are the 5 that I know of.